Okay, so brace yourself because we're not talking about a small hiccup in the job market. We're talking about 9.4 million working-age Brits who are not just unemployed. They've fully pieced out of the workforce, ghosted the labor market. No CVS, no interviews, no part-time side hustle. Just, nope. And before you ask, no, this isn't your usual rise and fall unemployment cycle. This is bigger, deeper, and way more ominous. This is what's called economic inactivity, and it's turning into one of the biggest slow-motion catastrophes the UK has faced in decades. If you enjoyed this, tap like, subscribe, and share. It tells the algorithm that this content matters, and it helps us keep creating more. If you enjoyed this, tap like, subscribe, and share. It tells, and nobody's screaming about it loud enough. So, how did we get here? You'd think a number that massive would trigger every alarm in Whitehall. But nope. What we have instead is a kind of national shrug, while the labor force quietly bleeds out. These aren't just people between jobs. We're talking about millions who've left the game entirely checked out, disappeared from the stats that usually make headlines, and gotten lumped into that shady little category nobody wants to touch. But let's start with what's probably the darkest root of this problem: mental health, and not in the abstract. Over 2.8 million people are on long-term sick leave due to health issues, and mental illness is now the #1 reason people drop out of the workforce. Read that again. Not cancer, not injury, mental health. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't some new wave of laziness or entitlement. This is a society cracking under its own pressure. The NHS mental health system is so overwhelmed. There are regions in the UK where people are waiting for years, yes, years to get treatment. So people get sick, can't work, fall into poverty, and then spiral further because help is either too late or just never comes. It's a doom loop, and it's growing. Now, toss in a little youth despair and you've got yourself a generational nightmare. Nearly 900,000 young people between the ages of 16 and 24 are neither working nor studying. Not in a gap year, not job hopping, just stuck trapped in a weird limbo with no entry point. You'd think this would be the moment for reinvention, right? Some exciting career pivot. But no. Instead, they're staring down a labor market where entry level means 5 years of experience and an unpaid internship in London with zero living support. It's giving Hunger Games, but with LinkedIn endorsements. And then there's the benefit system, aka the mathematical trap. Let's break it down. For a lot of households, getting a full-time job doesn't actually make financial sense. Sounds insane, but it's true. Between benefit tapers, high rents, and low wages, working can literally cost people more than staying home. Like, why take a 40-hour job that pays less than your housing allowance? It's not laziness. It's arithmetic. So people are stuck. Not because they want to be, but because the system practically dares them to break even. And with inflation gobbling up everything from groceries to gas, even the idea of getting ahead feels like a cruel joke. You can grind all day and still not move an inch. That's not ambition. That's survival. Now cue Brexit. Yep, it's still haunting the economy like a bad breakup text at 2 a.m. Since the vote, hundreds of companies have just left, packed up and relocated operations abroad. The regulatory chaos and import nightmares post-Brexit have made it easier for multinationals to say bye and take the jobs with them. We're talking finance, tech, manufacturing, whole industries just evaporating. And whatever roles didn't get shipped out are being automated away. Self-checkouts, AI chatbots, warehouse robots. Machines don't need pensions or sick leave, so employers love them. But for human workers, it's like watching your job get slowly deleted one button at a time. It's not coming back. And no, learn to code is not a real solution when people can't afford to retrain, or even take time off from gig work to think about retraining. Speaking of gig work, let's talk about that little dystopia. At first, it was sold as freedom. Be your own boss. Set your own hours. But fast forward, and what we've got is 4.4 million workers on gig platforms, most earning less than minimum wage, with no stability, no rights, and no future. 0-hour contracts, no sick pay, no benefits. You can't even plan your rent, let alone your life. And that kind of precariousness, it crushes your mental health, creating, you guessed it, another feedback loop. It's like a snake eating its own economy. And through all of this chaos, where is the government? Wasting money on doomed schemes with names like Restart and Back to Work that somehow cost billions while producing virtually nothing. It's giving big Excel spreadsheet energy, lots of data, zero real impact. And when they're not throwing darts in the dark, they're pitching ideas like raising the retirement age because yes, let's make 68-year-olds compete with 22-year-olds for part-time cashier jobs. If you enjoyed this, tap like, subscribe, and share. It tells the algorithm that this content matters, and it helps us keep creating more. If you enjoyed this, tap like, subscribe, and share. It tells that'll fix it. It's not just ineffective. It's tone deaf. It's panic disguised as policy. Let's be clear. This isn't just a rough patch. It's a structural collapse. The UK's economy is built on finance, property, and consumption, which worked for a while when money was flowing and the global market was stable. But now, the cracks are everywhere. Productivity is tanking. Investment is drying up. The tax base is shrinking as fewer people work and more people rely on public support. And when the tax base shrinks, guess what happens? Public services collapse. Everything from healthcare to transportation to schools starts to disintegrate. And then taxes go up, but there's no one left to pay them. It's a death spiral. And the worst part, it's not even a surprise. These warning signs have been blinking red for years. But instead of structural reform, we got vanity projects and quick-fix slogans. Nobody's thinking long-term. It's political TikTok energy, just vibes, no solutions. There's no comprehensive strategy to deal with the reality that automation is permanent, that mental health is now an economic issue, or that you can't build a future workforce on unstable, underpaid gigs. And as long as we're slapping duct tape on bullet wounds, this collapse is going to keep accelerating. So, what happens next? Well, if this trajectory continues, Britain faces a real, not hyperbolic collapse. We're talking rising taxes that nobody can pay, public services that don't function, and a society where working feels like a scam. A total loss of faith in the system. And when people lose faith in the system, that's when the whole thing tips. The scariest part, there's no clear exit. Automation isn't going to slow down. Young people aren't going to magically inherit stability. Mental health isn't going to improve on 4-year waitlists. And companies aren't coming back unless there's something worth coming back to. So here we are, teetering on the edge of something massive. 9 million people have already checked out of the economy, and if you think that number can't get higher, think again. All it takes is a few more years of my policies and my wages, and the whole middle class could start joining the sidelines. But hey, on the bright side, at least we still have brunch culture. In all seriousness, though, this isn't just about economics. It's about people, about meaning, about what kind of future we're building when so many are left out entirely. Because when almost 10 million people feel like the system has nothing for them, it's not just a labor crisis, it's a legitimacy crisis. So here's your homework. Sound off in the comments. Have you seen this happening around you? Are you one of the 9 million? Or are you just one paycheck away from joining them? Let's talk about it, because ignoring it clearly hasn't worked. And if you want more deep dives into the disasters no one's fixing, hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more breakdowns where this came from. Until next time, hold tight, and maybe don't check your payslip today. Because here's the kicker, this isn't just about numbers anymore. 9 million people not working isn't just a statistic. It's a symptom, a red siren blinking above the UK's head saying, this system is broken, and not patch dash a dash up dash with dash a dash fancy dash initiative broken. We're talking, burn it down and start over levels of dysfunction. Let's go deeper. You've got people in their 30s, university grads, mid-career professionals living back home with their parents because even with 2 jobs, rent is a joke. A cruel, relentless joke. Landlords are raising prices just because they can. The housing market has become less aspirational milestone and more elite members-only club. And with property ownership out of reach for the average worker, the only real economic leverage, the only shot at generational wealth, has vanished. So now, millions are stuck in an endless loop of renting rooms, switching jobs, and trying to stay sane in a world that treats basic survival like a luxury. And don't even get started on childcare. Want to work full-time? Hope you've got a live-in grandma or £2,000 a month to spare, because nursery fees are climbing like they're trying to join the FTSE 100. For parents, especially single mothers, the cost of working often outweighs the income. And that's not a metaphor, that's the receipt. So what do? They drop out. Not because they want to, but because the math forces them to. Let's give the UK benefit system its own little standing ovation, because somehow, it has managed to trap people in poverty and punish them for trying to escape. Genius. The second someone picks up part-time work, their support is yanked away like a magician pulling a tablecloth. But instead of applause, we get eviction notices and council debt. It's almost like the entire thing is set up to keep people just barely afloat, but never high enough to breathe. And you know what happens when people get tired of drowning? They stop trying. That's the human side of this economic inactivity crisis that nobody wants to talk about. People aren't lazy. They're defeated. They're exhausted by the relentless maze of paperwork, job centers, universal credit updates, and motivational seminars that promise hope but deliver absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, politicians give press conferences about getting people back to work, while simultaneously slashing mental health budgets and privatizing disability assessments. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline, only with more bureaucracy and less shame. And let's talk about the vibe shift, because something has fundamentally changed in how people relate to work. There used to be at least some sense of meaning, pride, progress, a ladder you could climb. But now, that ladder's been pulled up and replaced with a hamster wheel. And people are waking up to that. Why work 40 hours a week for a company that doesn't value you, for a wage that barely feeds you, doing tasks that could be automated tomorrow? Why burn yourself out when there's no pension waiting at the end? No home, no future, just vibes and overdrafts. And then there's the narrative. You know, the one where politicians and pundits try to gaslight the country into thinking this is a personal failure, not a national one. People don't want to work anymore, they say, sipping taxpayer-subsidized lattes from the House of Commons, as if the jobs they're referring to aren't zero-hour contracts with no benefits, no security, and no path forward. Just take any job, they say. Okay, but then what? What comes after the minimum wage grind, after the soul-crushing shift where you get screamed at by customers and then can't afford dinner? Where's the upward mobility in that? Where's the dignity? This is what happens when a country runs its economy like a slot machine and treats its citizens like gamblers. Some win big, most lose, and the house always wins. Even those lucky enough to have jobs aren't exactly winning. Burnout is the new national pastime. People working 3 gigs just to pay bills, glued to their phones in case a delivery app throws them a shift. Or worse, stuck in a desk job where the company culture is all we're a family, but layoffs are announced via mass email with a smiley face. Meanwhile, automation doesn't sleep. Every day, another industry gets digitized. Retail, self-checkouts, call centers, AI, journalism. I wrote this sentence faster than you can say redundancy package. And yet somehow we still pretend this isn't a crisis. Let's zoom out. An economy is only as strong as the people powering it. But right now, the engine's stalling. Britain's productivity is collapsing, not dipping, collapsing. Because you can't expect high performance from a workforce that's underpaid, underappreciated, and barely hanging on. You can't build growth on burnout. That's not economics. That's fantasy. And if we're honest, a good chunk of the blame sits with the government's absolute allergy to long-term thinking. Quick fixes, catchy slogans, and budget gimmicks don't solve generational decline. But that's what we keep getting. Every few months, a shiny new scheme that disappears before it delivers. Like a Netflix reboot that nobody asked for and everyone forgets by next quarter. Meanwhile, the rest of the world moves forward. Countries investing in green jobs, tech training, mental health infrastructure, real future-proofing. And what does Britain do? Announces another crackdown on benefit cheats like that's the big villain of the story. Spoiler, it's not. And now, the tax burden is reaching historic highs. Because when fewer people work and more rely on public services, the money has to come from somewhere. And that somewhere is usually you, if you're part of the dwindling middle. More taxes, fewer services, and a lingering sense of dread that the next crisis is just around the corner. So let's take stock. We've got nearly 10 million people disengaged from the workforce, a mental health system that's shattered, youth who feel hopeless, workers who are exploited, benefits that trap instead of support, a corporate sector that's fleeing, an economy that's unraveling. All of this happening at once, not gradually, not in the background, now. And it's getting worse. If this were a movie, we'd be deep into the second act, the part where the heroes are overwhelmed, the villain has the upper hand, and the storm clouds are rolling in. The question is, what comes next? Is there a twist, a redemption arc? Or do we just keep drifting toward the credits, wondering where it all went wrong? Because unless something radically changes, unless leaders stop managing headlines and start managing reality, this system doesn't just break, it dissolves. And when that happens, it's not just 9 million who are out of work. It's the whole foundation cracking. So here's where we leave it. In a country where people are working more and getting less, where ambition feels like a scam, and where rest is treated like laziness, millions have stopped asking, how do I get ahead? And started asking, what's the point? That's the scariest question of all. Because when people stop believing the system will work for them, when they stop seeing any future at all, that's when everything changes. Not gradually, not politely, but all at once. So what now? That's where you come in. Because this isn't just news, it's a warning. And if you're watching this, chances are, you're feeling it too. Maybe you've felt the burn. Maybe you've considered walking away from the grind. Or maybe you already have. So tell us, what do you see happening around you? Are you one of the millions trapped in the system? Are you trying to fight your way out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your story. Because these numbers, they're not abstract. They're people. They're us. And if you're into peeling back the shiny surface to see what's really going on in this chaotic world of meltdowns, mismanagement, and media spin, subscribe. Stick around, because the systems may be crumbling, but we're not done talking about it. Until then, remember, if the economy makes no sense, it's not your fault. You're not broken. The system is. And if you need more proof that it's not you, look around. This isn't some fringe phenomenon. It's the new normal. Friends juggling 3 side hustles just to afford a studio flat the size of a cereal box. Graduates with £50,000 in student loans working in cafes because every entry-level job somehow demands 5 years of experience and a post-grad diploma in Excel wizardry. Middle-aged folks laid off after decades of loyal service, now being told to rescue by clicking through some half-baked online course that won't even land them an interview. And while all this is happening, while society quietly crumbles behind a filter of productivity memes, those in charge are still acting like we're. And let's not forget the unspoken pressure, this heavy, suffocating expectation to keep up. Social media didn't help. You open your feed and it's an endless scroll of people living their best lives in Bali, launching their 3rd startup, or somehow affording avocado toast and a mortgage. So what's the takeaway? Britain isn't just facing an economic problem. It's facing a spiritual one. People are tired, disillusioned, and unless something drastically shifts, unless we build a system that actually works for people, not just profit margins, we're heading into something way bigger than a recession. So let's stop pretending this is a blip. It's a reckoning. Drop your story in the comments. Hit subscribe if you're not ready to pretend everything's fine. And stay tuned, because the cracks are spreading, and we're just getting started. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.